I think it's ridiculous with the matchmaking. Like you mentioned, like you don't have any issue with Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. It's actually a really entertaining fight. I also think the same thing for Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. It's just the fact that we're getting the interim title without Arman Sarukian in it, and now we're getting a guarantee that Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje winner will fight Ilia Topuria come next summer. So how long is the rightful number one contender in Arman Sarukian going to be out at 155? 145, you have undefeated Lerone Murphy, undefeated Movsar Evloev, and now Alexander Volkanovski's last fight was against Diego Lopez. Now he's fighting Diego Lopez again. And then that just leads you to think, going down the timeline, it's like, man, at 170, we have all these rightful contenders as well, and there's a chance that they give that. The betting favorite right now, you can get odds on that, is Kamaru Usman to fight that. So you're seeing this, we've always known meritocracy isn't the thing in this, but it's just like, man, there are rightful contenders being passed up in multiple divisions now.
Tony Ferguson's shot. So Tony Ferguson just made his backing pick for the UFC 304 interim lightweight title fight, and honestly, it created this massive shockwave that went through the entire MMA community. People were legitimately caught off guard by his choice, because let's be real, if anyone can give you a truly informed perspective on this particular matchup, it's Tony. This guy has actually stepped inside that octagon with both Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje. He's felt their striking power firsthand, experienced their rhythm and relentless pressure up close.
You know Paddy and Justin very well. They're fighting each other for the interim belt. Who do you think wins that fight?
Paddy. Only because Justin doesn't want another interim belt. That fucker, I mean, like, it's just it. You could tell, like, as soon as, like, when we were fighting, like, I prepared for a different guy. Like, I'd be real.
But here's what threw everyone for a loop. Instead of going with the seasoned veteran like most experts predicted, especially after he survived those 5 absolutely punishing rounds against Gaethje, Tony actually threw his support behind the emerging British sensation, and the way he explained it genuinely made people pause their scrolling and completely reconsider this entire fight. He was convinced the younger fighter possessed something crucial that the more experienced competitor had lost somewhere along his journey. In Tony's eyes, this interim championship represented something totally different for each guy, and he sensed that Paddy's raw ambition and desire would manifest inside that cage in ways Justin simply couldn't replicate at this stage of his fighting evolution. From Tony's perspective, that hungrier fighter who's still hunting his first championship always carries this unique intensity, a completely different drive than someone who's already tasted that temporary gold and understands what it really represents.
Paddy's not bad, dude. Paddy's not bad. He's very beatable, and Gaethje's very beatable as well. But when it goes into the passion and how upsetting Justin Gaethje has always been about not getting that real title shot, and they just keep dangling it right there again. I mean, shit. Paddy's in for a new treat, right? Paddy's the one that's never fought for a belt. He's going in there. He's going to be trying to, get that stuff. He's going to feel a little bit more fresher. He's going to have that little bit of excitedness, in my opinion. So if I was going to the book and I was going to try to place the bet, I mean, shit, I would go with the new kid that's going in there and that's going in there for the new opportunity rather than the old kid that fought for the belt, disrespected it, threw it on the fucking ground, and didn't give it for it.
The most striking thing about Tony's analysis was his complete confidence in the pick. Zero hesitation whatsoever. He envisioned Paddy stepping into this fight with unstoppable energy and forward momentum, while he pictured Justin carrying the accumulated damage from an entire career filled with absolute wars and devastating battles, every single one leaving its mark. Tony never questioned either man's skills or heart, but he saw Paddy as the more motivated competitor. The fighter who would approach this opportunity like it was literally the most important moment of his existence. Like his entire future depended on this single performance.
Paddy gonna fight with Ilia Topuria in January. I already knew that 5 months ago, but I didn't know that they're gonna do interim title Gaethje and Paddy. But Ilia didn't fight, and I think this is UFC game plan. It's not like a family issue or something. They wanna make star Paddy Pimblett to bring him to fight for the title with Topuria as a bigger name and make it like a big fight, like Khabib versus Conor, but they're not even if he got the belt. Paddy, for me, it's a easy work. Justin, it's a easy work. Ilya, easy work. It was a hard work, Islam, but he left nobody on my level on this division right now.
Tony's perspective became even more compelling when he broke down how both fighters had clear vulnerabilities in different areas. Yet he still identified Paddy as the more desperate competitor between them. Drawing from his own experience, he recalled that intense hunger and drive a fighter carries before ever touching championship gold, and he could sense that Paddy was still operating from that emotional headspace where everything feels critical and life-changing. His feeling was that Justin, having already captured an interim title previously and knowing exactly what that experience entails, wouldn't have that same original fire and urgency he once possessed when he first competed for championship hardware. While Tony had complete respect for both men's warrior spirit and determination, he believed that time and accumulated experience had fundamentally shifted what each fighter was actually pursuing in this moment.
Justin, if you need the help, let me know. I'll fly to you and help you.
Really?
I mean, I want him to win, that boosted guy. I hate him, but I hope Justin Gaethje not gonna drink, party, gonna train, dedicate himself, be focused. It's his last chance in this life. He was fighting for the title maybe 5 times. So this is his chance and the end of his career. Win the interim title, fight for the real title, and then retire. That's the best for him.
Tony's reasoning was straightforward in his own distinctive style. When you're deciding who appears more likely to truly capitalize on a moment of this magnitude and extract everything from it, that young, hungry contender chasing his first legitimate championship opportunity always seems more threatening and volatile than the veteran who's been lingering just beneath that undisputed gold for years, watching other fighters get their chances. Even while making his definitive pick, Tony still wanted both men to bring absolute mayhem when they finally collided. Because mayhem and brutality is precisely what a fight of this caliber always guarantees to deliver for the audience.
Is not as important as an interim title fight. An interim title fight, by the way, that does not feature a number one contender. Because the number one contender at 155 pounds is a guy named Arman Tsarukyan. And he's not involved in this fight. And of course, the champion Ilia Topuria is not involved in this fight. This is a makeshift fight. This is as prestigious as a BMF title. God bless. I said I wanted to see Paddy fight for the belt. God bless. I said, Justin, I think you need to win a couple more. He said he was going to retire unless he got a title fight. I guess he's not retiring. He's fighting for an interim title. But this is a bogus fight. And it's insane to me that it is headlining over Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. On paper, Paddy versus Justin, if Paddy wasn't fighting Ilia, and Ilya's supposed to fight Arman, on paper, Paddy versus Justin is a fine fight to determine the number one contender to fight Ilia and or Arman. Ilia won that belt back in June. I don't even think you need an interim title fight. Honestly, it should have been the co-main event, 5-round, number one contender fight, Ilia versus Arman, second half of the year. What's the problem with that? And now what you just said, because he reiterated this in the Instagram Live, the winner of this fight is going to fight Ilia. What happens to Arman? Arman's going to have to fight who? What is going on? What does Arman Tsarukyan have?
Now, while Tony was sharing his analysis and leaning one direction, Arman Tsarukyan was watching this whole scenario develop from the outside with mounting frustration that grew stronger with each passing development. Arman was absolutely convinced he had completed every requirement and exceeded expectations to earn his rightful position as the next legitimate title challenger. He had entered what was essentially a title eliminator bout, dominated the legendary Charles Oliveira decisively, remained active and prepared while others sat inactive and even maintained constant training camp readiness for whenever the UFC finally offered him an opportunity. Rather than receiving recognition for all that commitment and hard work, he found himself getting bypassed and ignored when the UFC made the shocking decision to book Pimblett versus Gaethje for the interim championship instead. Arman later revealed in media interviews that he had been hearing various whispers and speculation about potential matchups circulating long before any official announcements dropped. But from his perspective, none of those rumors or insider information hinted at anything nearly as exquisite as Pimblett actually competing for an interim title at this point in his career trajectory. When he eventually discovered the UFC was moving forward with Paddy against Justin for the belt, his reaction went from complete shock initially to rising frustration and anger, and finally to reluctant acceptance, since realistically, he had zero control over the situation.
Obviously, he knows he's fighting in about 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, whatever it is. So the man's ready, right? And he could be an interim champion of the world. Now, we know an interim champion basically means the number one contender. But if Paddy can pull it off, unbelievable. That'll be 4 champs, 2 interims and 2 legit, well, 3 legit now with Tom being promoted from the UK that have become champions. And for Justin Gaethje, This is the final go. This is the final crack of the whip. The man's had 2 title fights in the past, Charles Oliveira to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and now he gets to go up against Paddy Pimblett. Now, talking about the matchup, of course, it is an easier fight for Justin than what it is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest of all time. Islam Makhachev, the current pound for pound, and according to many people, a man that is surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So in that regard, it is an easier matchup. Will Paddy be able to take him down? Will he dance around the octagon? Yes, he will. Will he try and replicate the game plan of Max Holloway? Of course he will. Who wouldn't try and do that? You aren't going to stand and go toe-to-toe with Justin Gaethje because the man does have knockout power. But underestimate Paddy at your peril. That's all I'll say about that one, but that is a phenomenal fight.
Meanwhile, as Arman was expressing his displeasure and voicing his frustrations publicly, MMA journalist Ariel Helwani unleashed his own extensive critique, coming from an entirely different viewpoint. Helwani wasn't exactly shocked by the UFC selecting a popular entertaining figure over a legitimately ranked contender, since he'd witnessed that exact pattern multiple times before, but he felt this particular decision ventured into territory that made the entire interim belt concept seem practically worthless and random. This was establishing a precedent where entertainment factor and compelling narratives held significantly more weight than genuine athletic accomplishment and competitive fairness. From his perspective, organizing an interim title fight without involving the obvious #1 contender was exactly as backward and nonsensical as it sounded when spoken aloud. He noticed similar trends developing across other divisions as well, where fighters with rapidly growing fame and social media presence received major opportunities much quicker than those quietly assembling long impressive winning streaks against elite competition. Helwani strongly believed the sport was moving further and further from competitive legitimacy with each decision and creeping closer toward choices based mainly on spectacle and entertainment appeal. Michael Bisping entered the discussion with a totally different viewpoint and pushed back against the criticism being directed toward the UFC's matchmaking choices. He considered the decisions actually quite logical when examining the complete picture. Bisping argued that Arman Tsarukyan wasn't truly the rightful next challenger because of the substantial period he spent on the sidelines earlier that year when opportunities were being distributed. Rather than focusing on complaints, Bisping endorsed putting Paddy Pimblett in a high-stakes fight at this level, pointing to Pimblett's strong momentum following his intense confrontation with Ilia Topuria that generated massive buzz. He also defended Justin Gaethje's inclusion in this interim title scenario, highlighting that despite his recent devastating knockout defeat to Max Holloway that became an instant classic, Gaethje remained an exceptionally dangerous fighter with complete skills in every area. And he referenced Justin's previous commanding victory over Rafael Fiziev as clear evidence of his current sharp form. At the same time, Eddie Alvarez contributed his own first-hand experience and distinctive perspective to this debate in ways nobody else could match. As someone who had actually faced Gaethje inside that cage and delivered one of the most difficult and damaging defeats of his entire career, Eddie possessed this special insight into Justin's growth as a complete martial artist. He felt no frustration or concern about Justin receiving the interim title opportunity whatsoever. Actually, when examining everything objectively, he believed Justin had earned this chance more than virtually anyone else in the division, purely based on the incredible quality and depth of his fighting resume throughout the year. Eddie had tremendous respect for how Gaethje had spent years consistently accepting the most challenging opponents available without ever backing down or avoiding tough fights, and he thought that type of warrior mentality and track record still carried enormous significance. Eddie recognized that the UFC always operated with entertainment value and pay-per-view sales as primary considerations, that's simply the business reality. But he didn't view Gaethje's placement in this title fight as genuinely unfair when considering his complete body of work. What Eddie did seriously question was the broader matchmaking strategy and philosophy, because while Justin's spot in the fight made total sense on merit, the combination and timing still seemed somewhat calculated to support Pimblett's ascension and storyline. All these varying perspectives from active competitors to respected analysts to former champions created a complete and comprehensive picture of the reactions surrounding this interim lightweight title fight announcement. Some people appreciated the matchup and felt it was perfectly reasonable, others completely despised it and felt personally disrespected, and many believed the UFC had intentionally sacrificed fairness and competitive integrity for attention and mainstream appeal. But throughout all the disagreements and frustrations being voiced publicly, the same core concept kept emerging repeatedly in various forms. This upcoming battle between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett represents more than just a straightforward clash of different fighting styles or contrasting personalities, but a pivotal moment that revealed to everyone exactly how much this sport was fundamentally transforming at its foundation. Whether fans embraced the new direction the UFC was pursuing or rejected everything about it, UFC 304 had evolved into one of the most intensely debated and analyzed events in recent history, and that conversation showed no signs of slowing down anytime soon.